The Republican landscape appears to be shifting this week, but as the crack between the establishment and Trump widens, it's unclear what this really means for the party at large. Here's a little bit of what two guys had to say who have recently announced they will not be running for re-election.
The president has great difficulty with the truth. I don't know why he lowers himself to such a low standard and debases our country in the way that he does, but he does.
There are times when we must risk our careers in favor of our principles. Mr. President, I rise today to say enough. The notion that we should say or do nothing in the face of such mercurial behavior is ahistoric, and I believe profoundly misguided.
And now here's some sound we've gathered from a few Republican senators who will be running next year. Exactly. So is this a one and done, or in this case two, or is this the tipping point these senators hope it might be? Joining me to discuss are Republican Gabriel Gomez, former candidate for U.S. Senate. Gabriel, it's great to see you. It's been a long time. Joe Malone, former state treasurer and outspoken Trump supporter. Good to see you, Joe, as well. What'd you make of this back and forth between Corker and Trump and Flake and Trump, Gabriel?
Look, I think both Senator Flake and Senator Corker should be up for the profiles and courage on the JFK hopefully next year. And I don't think that Flake was just talking to the Democrats or to the Republicans. I think he was talking to both Democrats and Republicans, all the people down in D.C. It's finally time that people start putting their country first above party.
Big Trump supporter, but these are two Republican stalwarts who are trashing your guy. It's not some left-wing Democrat.
There is a realignment going on in the Republican Party. Some people are going to leave, some people are going to come in. We saw this during the Reagan Revolution. You had in 1984 a guy like Ray Shammy beating a Republican icon, Elliot Richardson, in a primary.
Were you his campaign manager?
I was his campaign manager.
So. Yes, that's right.
And that's what's going on here now. So in both the senators' cases, they were going to lose in a primary, and that's the kind of movement we're seeing.
Ever seen two sitting Republican senators, even if they're leaving, or two Democratic senators trashing the leader of their party and the President of the United States like this?
We have not. And,
okay.
And on the decorum side of things, again, Trump gets an F. On the result side of things, he gets a very, very high mark, maybe even an A.
Well, in the short term, but let's talk longer term for a minute. You knock out these establishment people. In fact, and Donald Trump was really happy about this. In fact, let's hear what he had to say about party unity yesterday. Here's the president.
We have great unity. If you look at what happened yesterday at the meeting, I called it a love fest. It was almost a love fest. Maybe it was a love fest. But we get standing ovations. There is great unity. I mean, if you look at the Democrats with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, that's a mess. There's great unity in the Republican Party.
I made a mistake. That was today, not yesterday. So you get rid of the establishment. In the short run, that's probably good for him. In the long run, you end up with nuts like Roy Moore in Alabama, who is within a few points of losing to a Democrat in the reddest of red states. So come 2018, the good news, as you see it of yesterday, may not be good news.
You have nuts on the left, too. You have nuts,
there's
as
no
we
question
saw it,
about it.
I think, in Congressman Wilson, the woman...
Roy Moore is a nut. Can we agree on that?
Let me say he's not my cup of tea, but you have people on the left who are way out there.
But if it turned... My point here, Joe, I shouldn't have... Well, I did characterize them. My point is, when you have somebody who's that extreme, who ends up being the guy who nudges out the establishment figure... what you end up with is potentially a Democrat sitting in that seat, don't you?
No, I don't think so. I think they win it, but keep in mind, Trump endorsed his primary opponent, who this guy Moore beat. So there is a movement among people. They want to send people in there who are going to disrupt Washington.
What do you think of the future of your party? Even though I know you're not a big Trump fan.
I'm absolutely opposite of what Jill thinks.
Okay, but what do you
Trump.
think? What is this whole... I mean, he did consolidate his power yesterday. Even if he took a hit in some quarters, the reality is two enemies, for lack of a better expression. I shouldn't use that word, but two opponents, disloyal Trumpites, are gone. That's good for Donald Trump. What does it mean for the future of your party as he essentially solidifies his base within the Senate?
Well, look, you put up what Donald Trump said. There's nothing you can believe what Donald Trump says. I mean, the guy lies consistently every day. He's been lying since he's been running for office. And in reality, hopefully he won't be there past 2020. Now, what I'm hoping for is that you actually get good people down in D.C. that can actually do the people's work. And personally, I think what Trump's doing right now is only good for himself. And I think we're going to find out that down the road we're going to get people that oppose Trump down in D.C.
When you said profiles and courage, though, for Corker and Flake, a lot of criticism of them has been, particularly in the case of Corker, you're a big-time Trump fan. You helped Trump get elected. You vouched for his credibility on foreign policy. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, not coincidentally, when you decide to leave is when you decide to have the courage. Speaking of profiles and courage, you've got to believe that there are other Republican senators who feel the same way. Not one of them has the courage. Lindsey Graham criticizes occasionally. John McCain we'll get to in a second. But essentially, why weren't there echoes of those two gentlemen yesterday if others feel like they do and like you do, Gabriel?
I think that's one of the most disappointing things down there. And that's one of the reasons that Trump's actually down there. I mean, both parties are very complicit in why he's down there. And the reason that Trump's down there, I firmly believe, because it was the biggest middle finger to the establishment down in D.C. And unless more of the Republicans and Democrats themselves go against their party when it's best for the country, you're going to see more and more power people like Trump.
Can we try one more thing about how this might hurt Donald Trump? Sure. You know, my notion is you used to serve. Vengeance is a big deal, was it not, when you were treasurer? Tell the truth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Huge. Okay, fine.
Not toward me. I would say. Yeah.
But you know, John McCain, who I consider to be a man of principle, part of that Obamacare vote. I don't know this. I think part of that Obamacare vote was because he has utter contempt for the President of the United States. And while Corker and Flake voted with the President on something I think was a disaster, this getting rid of these consumer protections in the last 24 hours, we don't have to debate that issue. Down the line, isn't he going to lose the vote of a Corker and a Flake and a McCain when he treats duly elected people the way he treats these men? What is the value?
So he has a style that is very different, but he's taken on the leader of the Senate on the Republican side. He's taken on other United States
senators. It may have cost him the repeal of Obamacare, if you agree with me about McCain.
It may have, but you know what? He does it his way. But here's the thing. Again, go back to the results. The economy is booming right now. It's not just a good economy. It is booming. In addition to that, people feel safe again in this country. ISIS is on their heels. You know, not done with yet, but we've got motion in the right direction here.
Yeah, but the motion in the right direction. He thinks the widow of a sergeant is a liar, and he goes on Twitter to basically say her version of the truth is not real.
I come back to the American people who view decorum in one category, and they look at results. Prosperity and security are what they're
okay with
about.
that. You know, you were a Navy SEAL. Sergeant Johnson was Special Forces. So you have a special, I think, unique. I have no idea what your position is on this. What do you think of that exchange?
I think it's one of the most disgusting things that Trump has done. And that says a lot, because he's done a litany of, I mean, we could be here for hours talking about the things that Trump has done. I mean, he's going after not only a war hero like McCain who has cancer, terminal cancer, if you want to be blunt about it, but he's also going after a widow, a Gold Star wife, who has 2 young kids and is pregnant, and can't even just have the common sense. What Trump should have done was like, you know what, I was wrong. I probably should have done the call again, redid it, and thank her husband and her for her husband's service.
Don't you agree with every word of that?
But he can't. He can't even get himself to actually like admit, like at least Flake and Corker have come out and admitted that they were wrong initially.
How about
with all
this?
Due respect to Gabriel and the service you've provided for this country, I commend you for that. But this was a case here. You saw what General Kelly stood up and said, because he was there when Trump has got the phone in his hands, and he knows what he said to that
General Kelly
woman.
lied about what Congresswoman Wilson said at the dedication of the FBI.
It wasn't a lie.
What do you mean it wasn't a lie?
He got one detail wrong.
The detail that was central to the whole debate.
Basically, his point was she got up there and took bows and threw
Did you watch the video?
At herself.
I watched the video. Did she say anything like that once?
I didn't see the video.
Well, you should watch the video, and you can come back and talk about it.
But she was the one who initially politicized it, and that's the kind of
she was the mentor of young LaDavid Johnson, and the wife wanted her in the car. I got to switch gears because I'm going to give you guys. I want to switch gears for a second. The latest thing that Republicans are trying to seize on is the dossier we learned about ages ago, this Christopher Steele dossier, some compromising information. No one knows if it's true or not on Donald Trump. What has come to light is the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton paid for part of this thing. Right. My reaction, you ran for the United States Senate. You were the treasurer of Massachusetts. Right. You ran for governor. How is this different from any opposition research you paid for and you paid for when you're trying to get elected to office?
So, number one, this is a company that has a track record of destroying people. Like if you're a whistleblower, you hire this company, they go after the whistleblower, and they throw
Christopher Steele, who did it, is a former intelligence officer with the
I don't care
UK.
what he is. It's all false information, number one.
You don't know that it's false.
Number two, it ends up in the hands of the FBI, who then use that to seek a FISA warrant. So So they're taking something created in conjunction with the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign, and they're using it through the FBI.
Clinton had no power over the FBI. Were you troubled by what was done by Hillary Clinton?
Look, I'm not surprised that either party did it. You know, in terms of opposition research, I mean, that stuff goes on and is going to continue to go on. But just the fact that both sides were so duplicitous about coming forward about what they had done, I think just magnifies exactly the reason that both parties are completely despised.
Are you as disgusted with politics as you sound? Last time you were here about a year ago, you said you were thinking of running for office. Are you still thinking of running for office again?
I mean, the option's still open, but I will say that both parties down in D.C. deserve another shock.
Gabriel Gomez, great to see you again. Joe Malone, thanks.
Great job on that debate last night.
Thank you kindly. I appreciate it.